Hello there, and welcome to Community Life. Here we talk with the community experts about their life journeys and how they came into the community world. And today we have a conversation with Holy Firestone, baby and doggy mama, a great charity donator, VP of Community and Exec Team at Benafi, and investor at Comsar and Baby. So, hello, Holly.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm not a morning person, but feeling pretty good this morning.
Awesome. I noticed there is a recent photo of Eric and Max on your Facebook, and I'm curious, from what age did Max start using his own laptop?
His own laptop. Oh, that photo. Yes. I mean, he was born with it, really. It was just hereditary. So born with the laptop.
What was
I
what?
dressed him up as his dad for Father's Day. So of course, my husband is a software developer, and I had to have a little laptop for him. And then he got a matching shirt and a matching hat and all sorts of fun stuff like that because he looks just like his dad.
Wow. So what was his first typing word?
The first word he typed, food, probably. He's really just smashing the keyboard with his hands right now.
And just food coming over.
Yeah, pretty
I
much.
see. How do you think, what should modern kids learn first, to write or type?
It's a really good question. I'm going to say probably, I mean, there's probably a million expert things on this, but I would probably say write because it helps with their fine motor skills.
Yeah, I'm really curious for those experts who will say that typing also helps
Yeah.
to develop those skills.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Tell me a little about your parents. Who are they?
Oh, okay. We are really starting at the beginning.
Yeah.
I I was born in Dallas, Texas, and my parents were both born in New York. And my dad's parents were immigrants, actually, both Holocaust survivors. They were in the Auschwitz concentration camp and unfortunately lost most of their families. But I bring this up because I think this has a lot to do with how I turned out the way that I did today, and thinking about how important it is to care for other people and to respect other people no matter where they come from. So they moved separately to New York and got married. And then my dad was born in New York, and he did not speak English until his family ended up moving to Louisiana and then Texas, and that's where he started learning English. So he was only speaking Yiddish, but my grandparents spoke a lot of different languages. They spoke Czech, Hungarian,
Wow.
Yiddish, English, Russian. It's kind of amazing. So my dad, it's kind of funny because you wouldn't expect it, but my dad speaks fluent Yiddish, but has like a real thick Southern accent. So it's really jarring for some people. They don't realize. I call him Yosemite Samuel because he reminds me of the Looney Tunes character that's just like, got the rootin' tootin' guy. Anyway, so that's how my dad ended up in Texas, and my mom, her parents were both also born in New York. And 1 second, I'm gonna take a pause because my notifications are still on. I want to turn on my do not disturb. Okay.
That's how it works nowadays.
I
Notifications
know.
everywhere.
I'm turning them off. I'm turning them off. Okay. So my mom, her parents were also born in New York, and they ended up moving to Texas for business, and they moved to Dallas, and my mom grew up in Dallas, and in a pretty actually a pretty Jewish neighborhood, which you wouldn't think in Dallas or Texas. But there are a lot of people in that community, and there was a really strong Jewish community in Dallas. My dad grew up in Fort Worth, which is outside of Dallas. It's like another part of the Metroplex, so they didn't know each other growing up. And so my dad is a CPA. He was an interrogator for the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, and that's the service that collects taxes here in the U.S. And then now he's a CPA, so he does a lot of. He's almost like a tax lawyer, I guess, but not exactly. So he really focuses on defending people when they get in trouble with the IRS, which is pretty cool. And then my mom stopped working when my sister and I were born, and really focused on taking care of us. And that's a little background on my parents.
Do you know how they met?
I think they met at a I think they met at like a Jewish singles event or something.
I'm just curious, whether your father weren't defending your mother in this tax case.
Yeah, no, not exactly. And I think parents are interesting. You gather a lot about people from their parents. I love my parents. However, we do have I have a very tricky relationship with my parents, as a lot of people, I think, do in a lot of situations. So, I think that certainly has shaped me into who I am today.
Can you please tell more? What do you mean by tricky?
Tricky. Sure. Well, let's see how to put this. My dad and I butt heads a lot. He and I have differing political views, and he's also he is a bit of a narcissist. I feel like I'm saying terrible things, but it's true. He is a bit of a narcissist. So that made it very difficult growing up in that situation, because generally, like, I took the blame for a lot of things, or just dealt with kind of a bad temper situation. And so all of those things are things that I've had to work through, and again, like, make me part of who I am today, but certainly struggled a lot growing up in that environment.
Do you argue a lot about politics?
Yes, with everybody. Anybody and everybody, because it's not necessarily just politics. I mean, it's people's lives. You know that better than anyone, right? This isn't just about a land grab that's happening between Russia and Ukraine. It's your life. It's your people shifting and moving, and so it's anybody who could talk about politics is fun. It's not. It's really about the impact it's having on people in their lives, and we have to be sympathetic to that.
Have you ever thought being a politician?
Absolutely not. No.
Why?
Honestly, because it's kind of bullshit. I mean, politics don't get anything done, right? I really don't think that, especially now, it's a joke. I feel like I can do better for the world on my own than I can trying to play a game that is the system is rigged, I guess. So I feel like I kind of have more opportunity to give back more this way.
I see. You recently made a post like, "My baby will be raised knowing that everyone is deserving of acceptance, respect, and love." So how you've been raised?
Really got to lock down my Facebook. but good sleuthing on your end. So I'm sorry, the question was, how was I raised?
Yes.
Not exactly in that way, which is interesting, because I go back to my grandparents being Holocaust survivors and their whole families were murdered. And it really goes back to, people hating other people. And that's why it happened. And so we have to fight and make a conscious effort to make sure that doesn't happen, not just to us, but to any people. And so I think a lot about that and how important it is to remember that and remember what my family went through, because it wasn't that long ago. People, think that it was so long ago, but it wasn't. It still affects us to this day. So, I'm surprised that I wasn't necessarily raised with exactly that mentality, but I've certainly grown up and grown into it. I think that some people kind of skew in the direction of like protect our people at all costs. But I think a lot about everybody and making sure that we are taking care of each other in the world.
Wow, it's really awesome. And what do you think? Do people have a good memory for such kind of holocausts and so on?
I don't know. I think that there's unfortunately, there's always been anti-Semitism. I mean, it's always been around and it continues. There's been a more bold rise in anti-Semitism as of late, and people are more emboldened to be open about their anti-Semitism. And so it's very, very hard. It's very hard to witness that because the Holocaust wasn't that long ago. And I think either people think it was, or they forget, or it doesn't resonate with them in the same way as a lot of other things do. So we don't have a ton of allies. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a memory thing, or people just don't realize how recent it was. I don't know. I don't know if it's a memory thing.
Yeah, it's so strange because when in 2014, like we lost part of our Ukrainian parts of Ukraine, and I weren't there, so it was like far ago. And when it went to Kiev, it was like crazy. So maybe it's when it's not touching you, so it's not like not exists, So
Yeah.
and when you feel it by yourself, you can definitely relate.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think, just in these last few questions that you've asked, it's pretty obvious that, my Jewish background is a huge part of who I am. I've mentioned it throughout everything, not even meaning to, but it is a giant part of who I am. I'm very, very proud to be Jewish, and I love all of the Jewish customs and the community that I'm in. So it means a lot to me, and that's why it's so alarming to see this rise of anti-Semitism, because I just want to send my kid to Hebrew school safe and sound, and I worry about what that looks like in the future.
Yeah, I totally understand you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, from what age do you remember yourself?
Oh gosh, just like my earliest memories, you mean?
Yeah.
Probably like four, maybe like four. I have a few like flashes of memories from being like 4 and 5 years old, so pretty young. But I don't remember a ton. Just like little things, like I remember going to kindergarten for the first time and being super shy. Yeah, I don't know. Little things like that.
I just wanted to ask you what the time was like, but I guess we have to move a little forward from the kindergarten. So
yeah, I mean, like growing up, some of my best memories, we were very close to my grandparents on my mom's side. Still am. I call my grandma. She's 90. She'll be 93 this year. I call her every single day. So super close to them. And they had a pool, and my cousins would come over and we would all go swimming, and they were the best. Like they'd get out of the pool, they'd have a whole plate of fruit cut up for us. And I was just really, really close with my cousins. We had a lot of fun together those summers growing up.
do you have a big family, like your sister, cousins? So how many of your...
Yeah, it's really actually not a huge family, especially compared to my cousin's family on her other side. They have a huge family, but we're pretty small. My mom has one brother, and he has 3 kids. So those are my cousins. And then my dad was an only child. So it's pretty small. And then I have one sister. So not a huge family. And my cousins, we really grew up almost like siblings, because we saw each other so often.
And okay, tell me a little about your sister.
Okay. My sister is 4 years older than me. Her name is Sarah. She is as sweet as can be. Sarah has an intellectual disability. So she is 4 years older than me, but she really operates kind of at the level of like an early teenager. So there's a bunch of skills that, just are a lot more difficult for her, and
Yeah.
school was very difficult for her. She was in special education classes and just the world looks a little different to Sarah, but she's amazing. She got a job when she turned 16 working at a movie theater, and she still works there. She's been working there for 25 years, which is unbelievable, but she loves it, and she got promoted to manager. And so it's really, really fulfilling for her. And gives her an opportunity to learn and be social. She learned how to drive not too long ago, which, it's a limited number of places that she can go, but like it's another thing that just like gives her confidence that she's mastered, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So certainly I'm always thinking about her, protective with her, and that is also an interesting dynamic. Is there was a point where I kind of mentally got older than my older sister, and it's been an interesting piece of my life, I think, because it's just a little bit different. And a lot of people wouldn't expect me to say that, but it's definitely different, and it's, I've leaned a lot on my cousins kind of to also be my siblings. So I have, someone to commiserate with, and my relationship with my sister is different in that, yes, we commiserate, but it's just a little bit different. And I just, want to focus on being a really good support system for my sister.
Yeah. Do you meet a lot nowadays?
Sorry?
Do you meet a lot nowadays?
Miss a lot?
Meet.
Oh, meet a lot. Sorry. Yes. Yes and no. She lives about a 3-hour drive away. She's back in Dallas, and I live in Austin. So not a ton, but we text all the time, and obviously like post stuff on social media and all that. And she gets pictures of her nephew. So yeah, I mean, we text probably a few times a week.
Yeah, cool. So in the conversation with Marcia Drucker, you told that you were an outcast and socially awkward in middle school. How did you feel that?
Why did I feel like that? I think it's because I mean, it was just pretty obvious that I was not in like the popular crowd, and I wasn't very socially adept. I didn't know how to make friends, and I was raised in this bubble with my parents, who I've already told you are pretty strange. And so I think, I didn't know how to connect with people. And I also, I was made fun of a lot. So that's like how you're an outcast, is the kids make fun of you. So there was a lot of that, just like kids making fun of me, and, not really having any kind of social awareness. And then in 5th grade is when I made my best friend. She was also kind of on the outskirts of things. Her name is Tracy. And she and I just clicked, and we were friends throughout, the end of elementary school and middle school. And to this day, we're still really, really close friends. She lives in San Francisco. And it's funny, I was just thinking this morning, I really need to call her so I can see her when I go to San Francisco. But she had a baby. She has a couple babies. And yeah, we've just managed to stay really close. She's one of those people that like, it really doesn't matter how long we've been apart. The second we're together, it's like we weren't apart a single minute. No time I spend with her is ever enough time. She's amazing. So she was a really big turning point for me in growing up and feeling kind of like an outcast, because we were kind of weird together. And that was really nice, and like accepting being, weird goth kids or whatever we were at the time. Because, you have a partner in crime essentially to do that with. So she was, she is a really, really good friend. And I think even just having one really good connection makes a huge difference. But then, she was a little bit more socially adept than I was. And so, we grew our circle of friends a lot. But yeah, that was definitely a turning point for me.
How did you meet each other, and what was the moment when it clicked?
I honestly have well, we met in kindergarten. We were in the same kindergarten class. So we met when we were 5 years old.
Mm.
When I still have like a big birthday card that everybody in the class signed and their signatures on it. So we met when we were tiny. I don't know. I don't really know how we re-met. I mean, we were probably in classes together, and I don't know how things got rekindled because we were like 10 years old, and I am very far away from that age now. So I yeah, I couldn't tell you how things got rekindled. I think probably like we realized she lived like right around the corner from me, and she is Jewish, and like probably all these like little things connected. And then, my parents were probably thrilled that I made a Jewish friend. And so like, encouraged us together. But we had a lot of fun together. We also got in a lot of trouble together. Um, yeah. Yeah.
Tell me please about one of those troubles.
No. None of them are appropriate for this podcast. I mean, I don't know. We like smoked a lot of pot and like hung out with guys and, things you do when you're in middle school and high school, all of that stuff. I won't get into details on some of them, but there's a story that involved donuts. And if Tracy ever listens to this, she's just going to curse the sky that I even mentioned that. So anyway.
Okay, I see. So I have to ask Tracy. Okay, got it. I read a post, and I'm really sorry about Zeus, but tell me about the day you met him and what preceded it. How did you decide to have a dog?
Oh, my dog Zeus. So I was in college. You're getting the good questions in. So I was in college. I was 20, and my friend had a dog. I was afraid of dogs growing up, terrified. But my friend had a dog, and I really liked that dog. And I was like, okay, well, I'll get a dog. How hard could it be? And so I saw an ad on Craigslist for dachshund puppies. And I went out there with a friend, and he got one, and I got the other. There were only two left. Sorry, my dog, of course, perfect timing. He's barking.
Yeah, it's about dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So I'll give it 1 second. Okay. Nope.
It is how it is. Yes, it's always like that. So
of course, right? He hears me talking about Zeus. So I decided I'd get a puppy. My friend got the other one. So this little puppy, I saw him pick up a toy and shake it like he was murdering it. And I was like, okay, that's the one I want. And he's a little tiny brown and white dog that fit in the palm of my hand. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was like 20 years old and hadn't thought it through and decided to get a puppy. So then, he and I grew up together. We were best friends, and we had a really, really special relationship. And, a lot of people don't believe me, but if you saw us together, you would know. Like my husband didn't really get it until we started living together. And then he would see like, I could say anything to Zeus, and Zeus would just like know what I was talking about. So I'd be like, okay, let's go get in bed. And he would run up the stairs and he would go get in bed, or like just a million things. We were just really, really, really close. And, they say you get like a soulmate dog, your one dog, and that was Zeus. And I love dogs. I love all dogs. I love my dogs I have now, but nobody will ever be Zeus. He has such a special place in my heart. And so we had to make a really, really tough decision. In the last year or so, he was getting eye problems, and we were having to give him medicine 5 times a day. It was a real commitment, and I actually also was sick during that time. I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So my husband bore the brunt of it. He's amazing. And then it just got to the point where we were like, he's not living his best life anymore. And it was the hardest decision, literally the hardest decision I've ever made in my entire life. I kind of wanted to just go peacefully into sleep so I wouldn't have to make the decision, but it was the right decision. And I miss him every single day. He was the best little best friend I could have ever asked for. He was there for me through thick and thin, and we just knew each other. So yeah, I miss him. I miss him a lot.
Was it like from the first sight, or you had some days building your relationships?
Oh, I think it was the buildup, just going through life together. I mean, 17, lived to 17 years. That's a really long time.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, that was basically half of my life, and um, you just grow together in 17 years. You learn each other, you take care of each other. We had a lot of adventures together. There were times that I thought I was going to lose him before, when he was 6, he had a lump. I thought it was cancer. It wasn't. He just, kept going, he kept hanging on for me. And he basically, he lived basically till right after, a few months after I got pregnant. And then that was kind of the end. So I feel like he hung on for me for a while. And it was just, we both knew it was time.
I can relate to what you're saying. And our first dog is Chihuahua. And once accidentally, my wife gave him coffee beans and he ate it. And we went to the hospital and they told that few more hours and he might die.
Yeah.
And it was so crazy.
Yeah.
So do you have some kind of good or not good stories connected to Zeus that you can share?
I mean, a million. He was, oh my gosh, my husband just let the dogs into the office and now they're crying. Great. So yeah, I mean, I have a million stories. He was so naughty. He was so smart. So like he could sneak into anything. So one time I had like this big kind of weekender bag with a zipper and there were Hershey Kisses inside. And so he unzipped the bag, found the Hershey Kisses. He dug them out of the bag. He like ripped open the Hershey Kisses bag and then he ate the Hershey Kisses and left a pile of foil and a pile of the little Hershey Kiss paper. He separated them. I have no idea why, but he ate the chocolate and separated the foil and the paper. I'm telling you, this guy. Or one time I had Sprinkles Cupcakes. Sprinkles is like a brand of cupcakes here, like fancy, delicious cupcakes. And I had them up on a tall counter in the kitchen. And we came home and the cupcakes were all over the floor. And he had knocked over a bar stool, climbed up the side of that bar stool, jumped on the top of the other bar stool, jumped onto the counter, pushed the cupcakes off, and had his way with the cupcakes. Oh, good. This is freaking well. Come here, dogs. Sorry about that. So yeah, I mean, a million stories like that. He just was so sneaky and too smart for his own good. And then, oh my goodness, hold on. I'm going to kick the dogs out of here real fast. Okay. Well, I kicked one of them out successfully, so we'll see what happens.
You never know. You never know what happens when you have dogs.
Yeah. Wow. This is Chester. I'll put him in the video, even though this is a podcast. So yeah, Zeus got into his fair share of trouble, but he was the sweetest. He would cuddle every night and he always wanted to sit next to me. And he was just such a good dog. So, and the cupcake thing, I forgot to mention. So Sprinkles Cupcakes, I sent them a picture. I don't know if you remember the kind of dog shaming trend while people would like write notes in their dogs. Yeah. So I wrote like, I ate all of Mommy's Sprinkles Cupcakes, and Sprinkles loved it so much. They did a promotion around it. A national promotion where they had the picture of Zeus, and it was, a picture of your dog. They made dog cupcakes too. So you take a picture of your dog with the dog cupcakes and win a dozen cupcakes or something. I mean, it was just so cute. So yeah, Zeus was a troublemaker and we loved him.
On that post, you wrote also that when Eric, your husband, came into your life, one of the first things he said that he didn't like small dogs. Do you remember the exact moment when they become friends with Zeus?
I think I don't. It was like little things that I would start noticing. Like he would start carrying Zeus around the apartment. Like Zeus has legs, Zeus can walk, but no, he wanted to carry him. Or like, I think I went out of town once and he watched him, and Zeus is like he was the most epic snuggler you could imagine. And so Zeus, he doesn't take no for an answer when it comes to snuggling either. So he would like crawl under the covers with Eric, and it's just irresistible. Like, that's it, you're sold. So I think that it was probably a mix of different things, but me going out of town and Eric watching him, and they bonded. I think that made the difference.
So you have to laugh them together.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, I see you're making, why I told that you're a great donator, you make a lot of donations. Do you remember what was the first donation you've made?
No, I wish I could tell you I did, but I mean, well, I guess to be completely honest, so there's something in Judaism called tikkun olam, which means to repair the world. And that is a very important value that's instilled in us from a young age. And there's also something called tzedakah, which means charity. And so when you are growing up and going to Hebrew school and Sunday school, they have these little metal like boxes with a slot for coins, and those are tzedakah boxes, and you donate money in those. And so I'm sure that's the first place that I donated, truly, like a nickel or something from my allowance, or I don't even know, my piggy bank money, whatever that was. But and then that they usually go and fund different causes with that.
Yeah, and if you make like some concrete donations, how do you decide what project or what association to choose, or how it works for you?
Yeah, so my husband and I, before we got married, decided that philanthropy was going to be a really important part of our lives and what we do. And we recognize that we are very lucky and fortunate and have done very well for ourselves, and that it is really important to give back to both of us. We both care a lot about that. And so we talked a lot about how we will raise our kids, and making sure that they're being thoughtful about giving back as well, and that we build opportunities for us to sit down as a family and decide what to do in terms of giving back. And so I pulled out some stock we both have some equity in companies that we worked for, and I put that in the Firestone Philanthropy Fund. And so I created a small fund that we use, and that we donate certain amounts of money throughout the year to different causes. It's really important to have that fund, because then we're not charge taxes and donating money on top of that. So then we actually get to donate more money. Another thing that I do is, excuse me, sorry, my allergies are so bad. Another thing that I do is I had a lot of requests that were coming in for people who wanted community consulting. And I don't have a ton of time for it. I'm pretty busy, but I do get 3 days off a year with my company to volunteer. So I decided that I would start doing consulting, and the consulting money goes straight into that philanthropy account. And so then, I am kind of limiting the number of consulting things that I do, because you have to pay for it. I just ran into a lot of situations where people asking for my time, and then like it wasn't a good match, or they weren't appreciative of it, or it wasn't necessarily something that I needed to do. So this way I know people are taking it seriously, because they're paying into it. And a lot of times it's for companies that can afford to pay. And then that money goes to charity. And then I use those hours as my volunteer time off hours through work. So anyway, it all goes into this fund. And then we look at the causes that are important to us. There are several. Some of the main ones are, I donate to the Jewish community here in Austin. It's called Shalom Austin. That's really, really important to me, because it pays for a lot of things, and things not just in the Jewish community. And so like they sent money to Ukraine, or thinking about the homelessness issue in Austin. But then also the Jewish community, we have to have security at every single office or building or community center, to keep the community safe. So, thinking about, excuse me, all of these things that help preserve Jewish life and Jewish life here in Austin, because it's really, really important to me. I donate to the Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Israel. The last 2 years, we've given money to causes that like Black Lives Matter and other organizations, Campaign Zero, thinking a lot about underrepresented communities in the US and issues that we're having in the US, and, disproportionately affects people of color in the Black community. And these last few years, there's been a real light that has been shining on that community. And it's just really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I haven't thought about before and want to continue to prioritize. And then also oh gosh, why am I blanking on it? Oh God, why am I blanking? Basically the IBD research community. I have an autoimmune disease. It's IBD. And so donating, so that we can hopefully find a cause. Sorry, not a cause. So that we can find a way to eradicate it, because it's terrible, terrible disease. So those are just a few. And then there's plenty of other things. I donate to the MS Foundation or other causes that are important to friends and family that they reach out to us about. So it really just depends. And then there's some smaller things too. So like on Cinco de Mayo, I always donate to a Latinx foundation. A lot of people here do not celebrate the right spirit of the holiday. And so they, do things that are, they eat tacos and drink margaritas, but I would rather give back to the community that we are celebrating. So anyway, lots on that. But philanthropy is very important to me. And I want it to continue to be the foundation of one of the pillars of our family. So as soon as Max is old enough, he will get a small amount of money, and even little, and he gets to pick where it goes. And then we'll continue that as they get older, and they will all have, I say they, we don't have a second kid, but I hope we do someday. And yeah, that'll be important.
Wow.
Sorry, I went off on 1,000 tangents there, but it's something I'm very passionate about. And I'm not speaking very eloquently right now. I should have had more coffee.
If you want to know a person better, just shut up and listen what they're saying to you. So I'm here. You can tell me everything.
I mean, you're asking some pretty deep questions, really good questions, stuff that I haven't even thought about in a while. So I love it.
Thank you. I'm getting, red in my face. So can you tell me, please, you told about this mismatching on the consultancy you've made.
Sure.
So, what can you make an example? What was it like?
Oh, well, I've had lots of people reach out to me, and then I tell them that I charge, and they're like, "Oh, never mind." I'm like, okay. I tell them that I charge, and it goes to charity. Still. But one time I had someone that was building a product that reached out to me, and I agreed to meet with him. And he basically walked through the product, wanted my feedback, kind of argued with me about some of my feedback. And then the call was over, and I never got a follow-up thank you or, anything like that. And I just thought it was strange. Like, you're building a product. This isn't, it was just so strange to me. And I just felt like it wasn't a good use of my time or my expertise, things like that. Or I'll get cold intro emails. Somebody that I used to work with was like, I want to introduce you to this person, and so you can talk to them about your whole experience in community. Or one time someone reached out to me and they're like, hey, I want to see if I could grab 30 minutes of your time so you could tell me how to build a community from ground up. From ground up in 30 minutes. I mean, you're hysterically laughing because that's absolutely impossible. Like imagine going to any other professional and saying, hey, I need to learn about marketing. I want to know everything, how to run marketing and how to be a CMO in 30 minutes. Let's do it. Like, what? Where would you even start? So little things like that I just they irk me, because that's not the direction that this profession is going. We community is finally, rising to the surface, and community professionals need to rise along with that and need to be respected for the expertise that they have, all levels of expertise. And so I want to make sure that I'm protecting my time, because I think it also sets a really good example for what the expectation should be for all community professionals, just like any other professionals.
Yeah, this what you've just told remind me about the overnight success. Everyone's talking about. So, what do you think about an overnight success?
I don't think it exists. I mean, that's pretty much it. I've never seen overnight success. I've everything's been an investment of time, an investment of thought, an investment of money. And overnight success doesn't feel real to me. And I think in this economy, and the downturn that we're looking at, it highlights that even more, because money was basically free before, and so companies could just churn money, lose money, and still be considered a success because they were gaining, they were growing, and it was growth at all costs. And now we're not in that situation anymore. Money is not going to be free anymore. And so overnight success doesn't really exist. And I don't think it ever did. It was kind of made up in a way.
Yeah, it's all media,
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you feel about making mistakes?
Oh, I make lots of mistakes. We all make lots of mistakes. I think the
Sure.
biggest thing is owning up to them and not being so hard on yourself about them, which I have a history of really beating myself up about mistakes. And it's only natural, I think it's so important to take responsibility and say, you're right, I fucked up, and this is what I'm going to do to move forward. And I have a really hard time with people who get defensive versus recognizing when they make mistakes, and thinking about how they're going to make things better, how they're going to fix it, how they're not going to make that mistake again. Or if they don't agree that it was a mistake, fine, like let's disagree and move forward in a productive way. But you just don't see that. People get defensive. And anyway, I think mistakes are a natural thing. I think you learn a lot from mistakes. I make mistakes every single day. I learn a lot from those mistakes. And I think it's really important when anybody and everybody feels comfortable pointing out mistakes. So my team, when I make a mistake, they tell me, and they're not afraid to tell me, because it's how we all make ourselves better.
I think that grown-up people is just a grown-up kids. So
Yeah.
I have a 10-year-old kid, and when he does something wrong, he not accept his mistakes for sure. And sometimes I can see parallels between adult acting like that and kids acting like that.
Yeah.
So you can definitely, if you see a person who accept mistakes and thinking what to do next, how can we get out of this situation, it's amazing. But when as you said, they are getting defensive, okay.
Yeah.
What's next?
Exactly. And I think, I skewed so far the other way because, like I said, my dad he's a narcissist. And so any mistake was a huge deal. Even if I wasn't making mistakes, I was blamed for mistakes. And so I bore the brunt of a lot of that. And so making mistakes, I was just so mean to myself and so hard on myself for years and years and years, even the smallest mistakes. And I've learned that mistakes are a good thing, because you learn from them and then you don't make that same mistake again, or you do in a different way or whatever it is. But that was a lot of work for me, and a lot of repair that I had to do on myself to embrace the mistakes.
Do you think one voice makes difference?
Sorry?
Do you think one voice makes difference?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure I can't think off the top of my head of all the times in history that's happened, but it certainly does. I think there's a lot of loud voices that drown out some of the more valuable ones, especially now where there's just like everything is coming at us all at once, notifications, social media, the news, and everything is just constant, constant, constant. But I do think one voice makes a difference. It's just really important that people listen to. We have a tendency, because so much stuff is being thrown at us all the time, to not focus and to not take a moment and sit back and try to listen and understand each other and empathize. And so I do think one voice makes a difference, but I also think listening is an important part of that too.
Yeah. Once you've made a post about the Community Manager Appreciation Day, and you wrote that the work you are doing is changing lives. At what moment did you understand that what you are doing is changing lives?
Oh, I don't know. You're really making me think back here. I think, well, it probably happened when I was at Atlassian and looking at what the community was able to do for people that were trying to push their careers forward and learn more. But when I think of like an exact example, I mean, it's just overflowing with the Salesforce community. A lot of people, Salesforce community is huge and it's vibrant, and people's careers and lives have completely changed because they participated in this community. I think of one person, the first person that comes to my head, even though there's so many, her name is Cheryl Feldman, and she was a hairdresser. She tore her rotator cuff and she couldn't participate, or she couldn't work as a hairdresser anymore. And then she started doing front of house stuff for this salon. And then they had her start learning Salesforce. And she went to a user group meeting trying to get an answer to a question she had. And on her way there, she went to an ATM and she pulled out $200 because she was going to pay someone to help her with her problem. But that's not what community is all about. That's not what the Salesforce community is all about. So she went there and someone at the user group just helped her. They weren't expecting payment. And Cheryl's career has grown and grown and grown. She became a leader in the community. She became a VP. I believe, I don't want to speak incorrectly, but at a financial institution. And she's just grown her career massively. And it all started with having this community that surrounded her and lifted her. And I think we saw a ton of that throughout Salesforce, of people that have built their entire careers based on the community that supported them. And I think we'll continue to see that, and have seen that, other examples too. And certainly like Atlassian consultants, we saw tons of that there as well, because there's just a large community that's supportive and, full of opportunity.
Yeah. You wrote the story when back in 2014 at the CMX Summit, Erica Cole quetched about her phone almost dying, and you offered your battery. And you mentioned that you were always prepared. So are there moments where you're not prepared?
Rarely. I wish I could say, probably over the top. So it's not necessarily, you want to be the right amount of prepared, right? So it's kind of the Goldilocks situation. Like you can be underprepared, you can be over prepared. You want to be the right amount of prepared. And people might say, oh, you can never be over prepared. But like, I am usually the one that's schlepping like the most stuff everywhere, because I want to make sure I've got Band-Aids if I need them. I've got a chapstick. I've got, all of these different things. So I'm always schlepping a ton of shit because I want to be prepared. And so there's probably a happy medium there. But, with my friends, I'm known as the mom of the group. I make sure everybody's drinking enough water when we go out drinking, or, I have safety pins and Band-Aids and all the things everybody needs. So it's pretty rare for me not to be prepared. I spend a lot of time making sure I have what I need. I think it all comes down to, I don't like being uncomfortable. So I have everything I need to be comfortable.
Was it from childhood, or there was some situations that learned you to be prepared for everything?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to think on that one. I really don't know. I have no idea. I just like to be comfortable,
Yeah.
So I don't, like I know if I don't bring chapstick, I'm going to have chapped lips and they're going to burn. And then my whole night's ruined because I'm uncomfortable. Right. I'm just very sensitive. So I don't know. I guess it's just, going through a few experiences like that where I don't want my experience ruined because,
Yeah.
something's driving me crazy.
One more side note from those posts. It's so important to take the time to thank the people that have had a positive impact on your life and career. How
Yes.
do you decide that, okay, I definitely have to thank this person?
I really think it comes down to how often I come back to the impact that they've had on my career. So I think in that blog post I was talking about Scott Farquhar, who's the founder of Atlassian. I think about Scott often because there were just a lot of interesting things that he did in my time at Atlassian, especially at the end, that really he did not have to do. That gave me a lot of confidence moving forward. And Atlassian was pivotal for me in my career and understanding who I am and what I wanted to do and why it was important and sticking to my convictions. And I left Atlassian ultimately because I couldn't get what I needed there to do what I wanted to do. And I loved working there. So it was a very tough decision, but it really showed me how much I believed in what I was doing, how much I believed in community and myself. And, I always come back to some of the conversations that I had at the end with Scott. And I have a lot of respect for him. And, I wanted to thank him and tell him how much that meant to me. And there've been a lot of other ones like that. I mean, Erica Cool's a great example too. I love Erica. She's one of my closest friends now. She's just an amazing human. So, making sure that she knows she's appreciated, but then not just the people, that I worked for or that mentored me, but people on my team. Tiffany Oda and Sophia Rodriguez Mata are on my team at Benify. They were on my team at Salesforce. And I don't even know how to begin to describe how much I appreciate them, how much I've seen them grow, how great they are at their job, trust that we have between us. I'm so grateful for them. So, and I think about that all the time. And so I want to make sure if I'm thinking it, that I'm saying it too, because I want to make sure they know as well.
Yeah. Tell me a little about your treasure chest with notes and shout outs.
My treasure chest. So I wrote a blog post about how important it is to kind of keep a treasure chest of goodies, whether it's digital or not. But thinking about, the beginning of my career, things were really tough, especially the beginning of my community career, because people didn't really get community as valuable as it was, especially on the business side of things or on the company side of things, but the community always appreciated it. And so, trying to keep notes from community members saying how much the work you're doing means to them, or other people on your team, or somebody saying you're doing a good job, kind of keeping a folder with all of that stuff, because community is hard and emotional. And some days you just need a little pick me up, and having that folder that you can go to and say, oh yeah, I did that. That's a good memory. I made someone happy with that. It's nice. It's nice to do that.
I noticed one more post when you had a small medical procedure, and Eric said that when you were coming out of anesthesia, you started to presenting content from a recent community session. What content did you present to the doctor?
Oh gosh, what was it? Oh, I think it was, let me think about the timing for a second. I think it was my SASTR presentation on the importance of like the five, it was something, the who, what, when, and why, and how of community, which is something that I presented around that time at the SASTR conference remotely. And yeah, I guess I had just been practicing and just was practicing as I was coming out of anesthesia too. And then apparently I said to the doctor, their whole office is this like deep blue color. It's their signature color. And I was saying how that's such a brilliant marketing strategy or something like that. I'm just like, oh, why am I like this? Like that's what I'm talking about coming out of anesthesia. So anyway, kind of funny. Yeah.
How do you find time to write blog posts?
I don't. Have you looked at the last time I wrote one? I did. I made a commitment in 2020 when I changed from Salesforce to my job at Ventify that I was going to focus on building my own brand and sharing my voice, and not letting work take over all the opportunities that I had to do that. And so I got really committed to writing my blog, and then I got pregnant. And anybody who knows about pregnancy, the first trimester, you're just exhausted all the time. So it was like anytime I wasn't working, I was sleeping. And I had just been promoted to the exec team as well. And so there was just a flood of stuff that I needed to learn and new expectations. And so the blog post kind of languished. I think about it a lot. I put one out recently. I have 3 that I've written and just not published. And so I put one of those out recently, and I just have been meaning to get back to it, but things are just crazy right now. I think I want to spend every minute of spare time that I have loving on my baby. And so I think I'll have more of an opportunity as things start to become, we get a better routine, then I'll get back to blogging. But I really loved it. And I had even thought about writing a book at some point because I love writing. But just not there right now.
Yeah, I see. Do you believe in faith?
Do I believe in faith?
Yeah.
Like having faith? Yes and no. I think that's I don't have a good answer for that question because I haven't quite figured it out myself.
Okay. Why Rave with drinks?
Rave with drinks?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Why?
In one post, you wrote that a person whose name is very similar to Rave with drinks. Why Rave with drinks? I know.
David Spinks.
Yeah, I know who we talk. Who we're talking about, but why Rave with drinks?
I don't know. I just rhymed, I guess. I just went with it.
It is so fun. Okay, so I wish to have the sky as the limit to our conversation, but time is the limit. And let's jump to the rapid fire questions.
Okay, didn't know that was coming. Let me take a sip of coconut water.
You have to be prepared for it.
Okay, fire them away.
So, Atlassian or Salesforce?
Atlassian.
Blog post or podcast?
Blog post.
What are your favorite color and song?
Green is definitely my favorite color. My favorite song, probably I Won't Give Up by Jason Mraz. I love a lot of songs, but the first one that comes to my head is that one because it was the first dance at my wedding.
Wow.
And we dance on our anniversary to that song every year.
Cool. If you were passing by the Tree of Wishes, what wish would you add there?
If I was able to make 3 wishes?
Let's say 1 wish.
1 wish. That nobody would go hungry.
Yeah. Name 2 people whose community life journey you are happy to hear about.
Let's say Brittany Koshera and Beth Vanderkolk.
Got it. Is there one question that I definitely should have asked you but didn't?
Well, you didn't ask me about my husband. You asked me a lot about my parents, but not about my husband.
What would you like to say about your husband?
I don't know. What would the question be? How did I meet my husband, maybe?
Let's start from it.
Okay, I will just tell you that because it's a funny story. I met my husband at a bar on Chestnut Street in San Francisco, a terrible, terrible bar. And we were hanging out with, I was hanging out with a friend, he was hanging out with friends. I was engaged.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yep.
Wow.
And yep. And I got to talking to him, and he told me he worked at Square. And I was like, oh, you must be Atlassian customers. And I was like, do you have an event space? Because I need a spot for a user group meeting. And so which is so funny. Like I'm just always working, right? And I wanted a place for a user group meeting. So he gave me his email address, and I reached out to him to see if Square had a space that we could host an Atlassian user group meeting because they were Atlassian customers. And then we had this email exchange back and forth that was entirely friendly and innocent, but hysterical. I mean, he's so funny. He's so funny. And so that was kind of what kicked off our friendship. And we were friends for a while first. And then when my other relationship went south, then we were, interested in dating. So it's just kind of a funny story that it all leads back to user groups and community.
Wow, it's really amazing. And frankly speaking, I have so many questions to you about your husband, about Max, about dogs, about everything. And I totally understand that we just cannot fit it in 1 hour. So just be prepared for the volume 2, 3, 4, etc. So I guess it's not the final conversation. So just be prepared.
Oh, I'm prepared.
Okay, Holly, thank you very much. It is the first time I'm meeting you, and it was so fun. It's all you're like you're like a sun. You're like shining so bright. So
you are too kind. This was really fun, and it was just really nice chatting with you. I can tell you really, really love what you do. Like you actually are a bright, shining sun. You've been smiling this whole time. I can tell you get a lot of joy out of this, and that makes me happy and makes it worth doing something like this. I think you have a very bright future. Like you very clearly have a grasp on the fundamentals. There has to be like you have to have a natural ability to really excel at community, and I can tell you have that. So it's really awesome to chat with you and to get to know you a little more too.
Thank you very much. I'm very shy right now, so don't tell it. Don't tell it, please. Don't tell it. Thank you very much, Holly. I'm so happy to get to know you better. And
Same.
So see you in the volume 2 and maybe in some other community world places.
Sounds great. Bye.